Hi out there, everyone. Hello.
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 Hi, if you are new to this channel and don't already know, I'm Bree.
And I am Glen.
And this is the Musical QuaranStream, where we have been chatting about musicals since March.
Yes.
We're also wearing some lovely merch today.
Happy Saturday, Jenny. Nice to see you popping up in our chat there. And let's see. And Bristol is here with us again, of course.
Welcome, welcome.
Nice to see you guys there, too. And so this show has gone through numerous format changes, all of which have been planned from the beginning, right? We started out this thing being like, well, we don't want to get too stagnant, so we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do
We
this.
just talk about musicals. Musicals we've been in, musicals we like, musicals we know nothing about, musicals we want to do.
Yes. And so let's see today we've got. I'm supposed to take a turn at pitching something.
Yep. Yep. So Glen's gonna pitch his idea for an Oingo Boingo musical.
Yes. But before we get into that, we want to remind people, of course, we have our lovely merchandise. We are each modeling one of our shirts here. Careful, careful. Save it for the paying customers.
Well, PG-13.
Yeah. So we have these shirts. The links to buy them are always below wherever you're watching us, live on Twitch or archived on YouTube. We've got our contest.
Yeah.
Which we have 2 entries for so far. And
we have 4 prize packages,
yes.
So we can always use more.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to enter, of course, you can always throw in your entry on the YouTube comments. Mm-hmm. Or you can always tweet them at us on Twitter. Yeah, and see, there's our handles up there on the screen. So there's Breeze's Cheese, if you want to tag Gabrielle in something. And there's Doctor Who, if you want to get me. It's a very old handle. But we are out there. We're looking at all of them. All 2 of them we've got so far.
Yep.
We're going to look at all of the other ones we get if anybody else wants to enter and win one of our lovely shirts. We have 2 each for the prize packages of the Virginias for Social Distancing and the logo shirts in different colors. Mm-hmm. And everybody's going to get, as well as a shirt, a minimum of 2 bars of soap.
Handmade soap with vegetable glycerin. Mm-hmm. We've been using it throughout the pandemic quarantine. It's been great for us. We are looking forward to sharing it with you guys. It's natural flavorings and colorants. Well, not flavoring, scents. Don't eat the soap.
Do not eat the soap.
Don't eat disinfectant or bleach or soap.
No matter what you have heard, do not eat soap. It will not help.
No.
Okay.
Well, so definitely enter that contest. We'll be reviewing everything on May 1st. Mm-hmm. It might be a little bit later. We might extend it by a couple days, but we want to get the stuff out. We'd like to support the post office and get some things. I've also been making a lot of handicrafts, so you might get a surprise pillow or a little crochet thing from me. Glen is a really fabulous comic artist who did our logo, so you might get a little drawing. So we'll try to make it something that's from the heart, from both of us, things that we've been making and doing over the pandemic that hopefully will be a nice keepsake for our audience.
Yeah.
What we've been doing pretty much this past week is just stressing out.
Yes.
We got 3 million cases of coronavirus in the whole wide world, and 1 million of them are here in the United States.
Yes.
States are opening back up. We're very lucky. We only have 60 cases here in our county, but it doesn't look like we're over our peak either. No. So my job is thinking of opening back up I almost said March, May 18th, which has got me a little stressed.
And I just want to... We try not to be too political, in part because we just want this to be a moment of joy that we can all talk to each other and communicate. But I encourage you, if you are in one of the states that is opening back up, first of all, stay safe. Do as much as you can for self-isolation, social distancing, wear your mask.
Please take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. And if you can find time within the next few days, call the number for your governor's mansion and ask when they will be reopening for tours. because that message needs to be, like, sent. We've already seen, like, a couple of people on Twitter tried calling the Georgia governor's mansion, since they reopened businesses on Friday, and asking for a tour and insisting, hey, you're reopening the state, I should see a tour. And of course they're getting the answer of, there's a pandemic on, we're not going to give tours as long as there's a pandemic. Even though beaches are open, clubs are open.
Yeah. Call your elected officials.
Yes, call your elected officials.
We really need to stay safe. I mean, I just think it's so crazy that 1/3 of all the cases in the world belong to the United States. 1/4 of all deaths from this disease belong to the United States. And I just feel that if there was any other war or terrorist attack or anything else, we would be up in arms. And I know that many of us are, but we must stay safe and social distance. But I think that there's still a lot of things that we can do. And I know that I feel consistently hopeless throughout this because stuck at home and sometimes our power doesn't work, our internet goes down, and you know, just we're all trying, and we're here and we support you and we love you.
We're trying our best. I have my Jarvis hoodie back there that says "Crying My Best." And that feels that's the big mood of 2020. But let's move on to happier things.
Well, let's talk about some musical things or some theater things we've been watching or doing, in case we want to share it with you guys. One of the things that I was very excited about is I saw the National Theater production of Treasure Island, which is amazing. Jim is a girl, which is great. It was like really fabulous casting, and there was live sea shanties, and they built like a 2-deck ship, which was awesome, and an animatronic parrot. It was so cool. I loved it. It was 2.5 hours, but highly, highly, highly recommend. And
see, she watched it on her own computer, so like I will probably be going to watch it after this stream.
Yes. Yep. Come on, but it is 2.5 hours, but it doesn't feel like it, and kids 10 and up can watch it. It was actually like a younger production, which I was like really surprised by because I was like, oh, I don't want to watch kids theater, but really good.
Yes.
I also listened to the Broadway Podcast Network has a new post-apocalyptic musical out called Bleeding Love, and it's starring some like really famous people like Annie Golden and Sarah Beth Styles and all that stuff. I really liked it. I tweeted at them, and they tweeted back at me, and they're only on episode 1, so they have the trailer and they have episode 1. There's about 2 more episodes coming out. It's really engaging. It's about a teenage cellist and trying to figure out what does love mean, because she's kind of grown up indoors and really hasn't been outside or met other people aside from, you know, the neighbors that she shares the house with, and then her, I think, great aunt. But it's really, really interesting. First episode is about like 30 minutes long, so highly recommend. Definitely check them out. Some other things that have been going on is there was another quarantine bake-off, which is, I think, going live on Wednesday, which is exciting. Broadway Bounty Hunter, which was a production off-Broadway last May, which was kind of parodying those exploitation films of the 1970s. That has a new release date for an album, so if you kind of grew up with those type of movies and you would find it really entertaining, definitely go check that out. I'm sure that because it's off Broadway and not Broadway, it'll be an affordable purchase for many people. I regret to say this was released on the 24th, and I have not seen the price or gone checked it out just yet, but you know, if you do have, I would say it's probably going to be like $10-15. If you do have that, please go check it out.
Yeah.
Looks pretty good. I've heard a couple of the demos online. I really like it. So.
And of course, we've been up to our eyes in Netflix, as well as stress and existential angst. And something that I've been doing that's a little bit musical that I've been enjoying is, some of you already saw this on my social media. I got a nice, snazzy, new to me mini disc player, which is also a mini disc recorder, which is great because mini discs, pre-recorded mini discs, are incredibly expensive now. But it came with some blanks that I could reuse. So I've been recording off mini discs and listening to my mini disc player and really enjoying it. And there's something very nice about sliding the music into the player and it sounds wonderful. And so far I have 4 recorded. This one is Poe's Haunted. This one is Utada's Exodus. Those were the first 2 albums I kind of joked about putting on mini disc. I wasn't joking. I put them on mini disc. This one right here is David Bowie, which this is both the Gouster, that 70s album that they just released like posthumously, and The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. And then this one, which is Oingo Boingo. And this is...
That's a perfect segue.
Yeah. It's almost like I planned this, which Oingo Boingo is the subject of today's show. That's the jukebox musical I'm going to be pitching. This disc has on it 2 of their albums. It has Only a Lad, which is actually like one of the albums of theirs that I heard later after discovering them. And it has Nothing to Fear, which is one of the first albums of theirs that I heard. And like we talked about last time, Oingo Boingo is part of basically the sound of the 1980s. Like 1980s television, 1980s film. You would hear them on the soundtrack for just about anything. And weirdly enough, I did not discover Oingo Boingo back in the 80s.
No.
Yeah. Because I didn't listen to a lot of pop radio in the 80s. I didn't watch a lot of MTV in the 80s. Most of my intake of music was either oldies and classic rock or country music. And pop radio is sort of like, don't tune the radio to pop radio, don't watch MTV, all of that. But when I was in college, I hosted a college radio show. And for my college radio show, I was playing a lot of kind of off-the-wall artists, indie artists and everything. And then I signed up for one of the early music services called eMusic. You can still find it today. It's still around. Back then, it was like unlimited MP3s. Pay them like $10 a month, get unlimited MP3s, anything in their library. And they had Oingo Boingo. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard a lot about Oingo Boingo and everything. I'll download it and give it a listen. And everything that the independent artists I was playing on WUVT FM 90.7 Blacksburg was contained, everything they were trying to do was contained within what Oingo Boingo had done in the 80s. And that blew my mind at the time. So that's a little bit of a backstory of how I got into listening to Oingo Boingo. It was already 1999, year 2000, by the time I could actually say, hey, I know about this band. But of course, because I was a theater major at the time, I instantly started thinking about how can I turn this into a stage show. You know how that works.
Yes.
She still does that all the time. But, okay, so here is where I had my vision of it going. All right?
Ready.
All right. I wanted to do a science fiction post-apocalyptic musical featuring the music of Oingo Boingo. Because if you listen to Oingo Boingo, there's a lot of their music. They do have that very 80s sound of the synthesizer and the drum machines and the sort of rhythm to everything that they do. They are not a band that has a lot of slow power ballads. Everything's kind of bouncy, everything's kind of buoyant, but at the same time, a lot of the lyrics are very, very dark and very sinister. They have Danny Elfman plays characters in these songs, in the original songs, who are not people you genuinely want to meet in real life. Mm-hmm. So you have some of their songs like Dead Man's Party, which honestly is
It's a bop.
It's a bop, yeah. But it's about finding joy in a world that is ruled by death, essentially. Mm-hmm. It's about not letting it's about recognizing that the grim specter of death is always there with you, but not letting it get you down. And I love that. And then you have something like Little Girls, which is considered one of their more problematic songs nowadays. But you listen to Little Girls, and the whole point of the song is that the viewpoint character is so horribly vapid and shallow that he cannot make like real relationships with anybody. So there's all of these pre-existing characters that I just love for the songs and the way that they portray them and things like that. So, for my story, it's a little bit Road Warrior, a little bit rock and roll, and it's a little bit Wizard of Oz. All right. So Wizard of Oz, of course, not going to be strictly Wizard of Oz, but Wizard of Oz provides sort of the structure for how I wanted the story to take place. And the whole thing began with a monologue that I wrote, which I wish I had the foresight to dig up for today, so I could like read a little bit of it or something. But it was about the monologue was essentially it began with it began with it's 2 a.m. in Seattle, Washington, and Sister Disco just went on the wire. And it was this was the early days of everything going online. So the idea was essentially like this virtual pop star, Sister Disco, who was created to be this perfect musical force, capable of appealing to everybody, capable of moving people with her music, that sort of thing like that, who had been kept completely under wraps. And somebody got the idea before her big debut before they roll her out to this post-apocalyptic world, of putting her on the wire, which basically meant plugging her into the network and letting her see the world as it is. And over the course of the monologue, what becomes clear is that now Sister Disco has disappeared completely, and they don't know where she is. So then you introduce the character of Sister Disco, who is now in a physical form, somewhere out in the middle of this post-apocalyptic wasteland. She has no genuine memory of who she is. She has no idea of what she's supposed to be doing. But there are people out there in the wasteland who she encounters, some of whom are friendly, some of whom are not. And she builds this coalition of people who are lost like her. And all of them are listening to the advice of, there's one man in the wasteland who can help you, who knows exactly what everybody needs. And that is the Elevator Man. All right? The Elevator Man, by the way, another Bob from Oingo Boingo. That's the one, that's the, who's going down, who's going down, who's going down. I used to have that bass note. I don't have that bass note anymore. But it is... So you have these characters. Her first character she was going to run into was a guy called Roller Boy, who was sort of this outcast from a tribe of people and everything. So he didn't have a place in the wasteland anymore, so he would go with her to try to find the Elevator Man and get, he'll get her memories back. He'll get him his place in the wasteland. You have, they run into the Dead Man's Party, which is like the death worshippers in the wasteland and things like that. And they pick up a member of the Dead Man's Party. They run into the other Roller Boys, which would be, I've completely blanked on what song they were going to have. But it was a really good song. I want to say that it was What is the Law, which is the What is the Law, No Spill Blood, sort of. And then all through this, you have this shadowy figure of the man who commissioned the creation of Sister Disco. You have scenes with him. And the feeling I wanted the audience, I wasn't going to refer specifically to Wizard of Oz, but I wanted the audience to be making those connections on their own. The connection for this shadowy, sinister figure would be the Wicked Witch, watching Dorothy and all of her friends on their way to the Emerald City. Similarly, you would have the record executive, essentially, watching. And you would have a character of the man who programmed Sister Disco. It builds up. You have the guy sending someone to try to capture them. It fails. They finally arrive at the city of the Elevator Man. You have the big song of Elevator Man, and it turns out Elevator Man is the record executive. So, like, little twist there suddenly of the Wicked Witch and the Wizard are the same person, instead of the Wizard being the one who has to send out to the Witch. All right? And so, unwittingly, Sister Disco and her allies have essentially stumbled into the big evil plan that was set up for them all along. Because the person who is supposed to help them is actually the person who set her on this path to begin with. And you would have this sort of disassembly of the group, pulling her apart from the group, that sort of thing. Was going to use the song One More Night, which is, I think, as close as Oingo Boingo actually gets to a slow ballad. Which is the, we can get the room one more night, Yeah. So that would be the Elevator Man and the Sister Disco character. And what you would learn is the signal that Sister Disco is created to carry is a signal that is supposed to be a signal of conformity and control. She's supposed to carry the signal of bringing everything under the control of the Elevator Man. And the end of the play would be the signal has to go out. She's put in a situation where, like, her friends are in danger if she doesn't help with this plan, that sort of thing. And she herself makes the decision that she can send out a different signal. And instead, she sends out a signal of defiance. She sends out a signal of rebellion, that sort of thing. Which results in, ultimately, the tearing down of the entire Elevator Man's compound. And I wanted it left with the audience not really knowing the final fate of the main characters, but just knowing that a decision was made to make the world a better place instead of turning the world over to the control of a dictator.
Okay, cool.
All right. And that's a very rough outline of what I wanted to do. Now, like I say, I've been thinking about this thing. I think last time I said I'd been thinking about it for more than 10 years.
Yeah, you're like 20 years.
Yeah, it's like it's more than 20 years at this point, actually.
Yeah, because 2020, man.
Yeah.
Time goes by really fast.
Yes, so I've written like little bits and pieces and rewritten little bits and pieces. And this has always been, for me, one of the big 3 shows that I wanted to work on. That I feel like everybody has their list of projects that they want to do. And for me, this was one of the 3. And those 3 were Sister Disco on the Wire, the Oingo Boingo musical, the stage adaptation of Shock Treatment, right, and a stage adaptation of The Phantom of the Paradise. All right, 3. And I've actually written letters and everything about these. And over the years, here's what I learned. 4 years ago, I learned Richard O'Brien does not like Shock Treatment. Has 0 interest in seeing anything new done with Shock Treatment. And in fact, he has his own parallel sequel to the Rocky Horror Show that he has been workshopping on and off called Rocky Horror Shows His Heels. And has cannibalized songs from Shock Treatment for Rocky Horror Shows His Heels. So, Shock Treatment stage musical, it's not going to happen. Write that one off. We've got 2. So now I've got the big 2. All right. Phantom of the Paradise, we just found out this past year. Paul Williams has actually been collaborating on and off with Donovan Leitch over the past few years on, hey, can we turn this thing into a musical because people seem to like it a lot. All right, so I'm not going to get Phantom of the Paradise either. So I was holding on to the Oingo Boingo musical and being like, well, if I could just get Danny Elfman's attention. And in researching for this show today, I found an interview with Danny Elfman where it turns out Danny Elfman hates having to listen to things that he wrote. He hates having to review things that he has done in the past. And when asked specifically about, like, is he considering remastering the Oingo Boingo albums or, like, creating a definitive version of them or anything, he specifically said that he felt like it would be incredibly painful for him to have to go back and listen to all of Oingo Boingo again. Because in addition to his feelings of, like, as a lot of artists have, we talked about it ourselves and our own feelings, a lot of artists don't like looking at their own stuff. In addition to those feelings, he's also got, apparently, a significant amount of embarrassment when he thinks about the 1980s. That, I saw in the interview they asked him about the music video for Weird Science, and he was complaining about that. And the person interviewing him said, but I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the video. It looks very 80s, Anything from the 80s really looks like that. And his response to that was like, well, that's not anything to be proud of, though. So the chances of me getting Danny Elfman to agree to an Oingo Boingo musical, very, very slim at best. Yeah.
Yep, so good thing you have more than 3.
Yes, good thing I had more than 3 ideas in the world. But at the same time, I've got to let those big 3 go.
Yeah.
And pitching this show has been kind of a way, and I thank you guys for indulging me on this, kind of a way for me to be like, I did something with it.
Now other people know.
Yes.
It's out in the world.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll sell it to another band.
Or, kind of make it your own. I mean, I think that's kind of the good thing is you can always have that inspired by.
Yeah.
And I know that you produce a lot of your own music. If you've ever watched, we're kind of stealing this channel, The Film Optimist, for Musical QuaranStream. We didn't create a new one because Glen actually has his own project that started before the QuaranStream called The Film Optimist, where he produces one new original song with every topic that he talks about. And he talks about various media and communications and things out there because that's kind of his area of expertise. And so he has his own albums, he has his own songs. So I think it would be very possible for you with the technology that you have to have an inspired by, but you would have to kind of create your own little songs in akin to what you've heard.
I would have to do my own mini Oingo Boingo project, basically. Which, by the way, if you search on YouTube, Oingo Boingo Gong Show, you will pull up as one of the very first results an 18-minute clip of the Oingo Boingo making their television debut on the Gong Show. And it is hilarious. And I don't know. I watch it, and there's part of me that understands like why Danny Elfman is embarrassed looking back at that time. And there's also part of me that's like, but no, that was awesome. Like you went into incredibly organized spaces, and you just were chaos. And Jenny says that she likes the pitch, and she would watch that. So thank you very much. But I will keep working with the idea and see what I can come up with to make it work. Sadly, it's not going to be the Oingo Boingo musical. Unless someone shows this video to Danny Elfman and he takes pity on me.
Please, no, I mean, I really feel like that's kind of like the most exciting thing is when you find something that you love and you have to be creative to create it, really. And I think that you have the talent that you could make it into something with music by yourself, and then you don't have to share any of the profits.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I've got to... Here's the thing. I was thinking about this earlier. Mm-hmm. I have been thinking of myself as someone who wants to be a professional writer since I was a little kid. So I've always been to like writing workshops and getting advice from writers and things like that. And one of the big points of advice that I was always getting from writers was never waste your time working on an adaptation if you don't have the rights already. You're like, don't write a Star Trek novel until the publishers of the Star Trek novels have contracted you to write a Star Trek novel, even if you've got a great idea for it. Mm-hmm. Don't do that with Doctor Who. Don't do it with, I'm making a stage adaptation of this movie, or I'm making a film adaptation of that book, or anything like that. And it's like, if you don't have the rights, you're going to waste time writing it, and then it's not going to go anywhere because they're not going to give you the rights. And then it was just a few years ago, Bree was talking about, she wrote a play based on a book. This was the one that was like the Jester's version of...
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, so I love Christopher Moore, and I love his Fool series. So I just literally took Fool and I just turned it into a play. Like, I haven't done anything with it aside from I just transcribed all the funniest bits of dialogue that he wrote. And he's probably going to write his own play. Yeah. But I've kind of been always in the secondary camp where I just always just create something that I love, like based off of fan art or whatever, and just go for it. I mean, I haven't made any money off of it, but it's been fun. And sometimes you just need to scratch your own internal itch.
And that's the thing is that I was thinking about is I'm like, you know, there's actually 2 points of advice there. And this is why I really wanted to get this out into the world. It's like, I want other people to learn from what I experienced. There are different ways people think of stories. Some people can just have an idea, write down the core of the idea, and then go on with their lives. And write something else completely and be like, if I ever get the chance, I'll go back to that. Other people have an idea, and they dwell on it until something comes of it. A finished draft, or even a rough draft, someone reading it, someone producing it, whatever. It has to come to some sort of fruition before their brain stops turning it over and over in their heads. I think I belong to that camp. I've never been satisfied with just writing down an idea and going. If I had followed more what Bree does with her writing on these subjects, I could have just produced a finished draft, and Jenny just mentioned fanfic is a big thing right now in all genres of art. I could have just posted it on the web as fanfic and gotten on with my creative life.
Well, and I think that now there's definitely a different side of advice of what you've been getting because I follow a bunch of artists on Twitter. I really, I've never been a big comic book person, but I do like a lot of people who draw comics, and I've bought a lot of original art. And a lot of people said, yeah, like by doing fan art, they've been able to use that for their portfolio to then, you know, Noelle Stevenson rebooted She-Ra. Yeah. You know, so I feel that, it might start out as something that you don't get paid for, but I do feel that for me, and I know I talked about this several weeks ago, I just basically wrote newsies from watching the movie a lot. Well, and then we did it over the summer as a group of high school kids. And that's kind of how I've always worked, is I wanted to see something out there. And by taking the time to do it, I think I've either vomited out a whole bunch of bad words that I don't necessarily need to count towards my finished products, you know, where it's like I always say, get out the garbage first. Or I've learned something in kind of the structure of the show, because it's a lot of that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. Well, clearly this worked in a movie or as a play or as a book because there was a great story arc and a great character development. So when you're starting out, I do think that it's fairly useful as a young writer to just be like, you know what, I'm just going to write a bunch of stories that are like, my favorite episode or my favorite book or something.
And I'll throw another one out there. You mentioned Noelle Stevenson. Gail Simone, of course, was a huge comic book fan who turned writing about social issues reflected in comic books into comic book companies contacting her and asking her to write for them. And Stephen Moffat, we have lots of opinions about Stephen Moffat in general. But Stephen Moffat, remember...
I'm a Russell T. Davies girl.
I am too. I'll even accept the girl. I'm a Russell T. Davies girl. I am too. I'll take it. But Stephen Moffat, remember the really great episode he wrote during Russell T. Davies' time on the show, Blink, where we were introduced to the Weeping Angels for the first time. It turns out he originally wrote that story as Doctor Who fanfic for an America Online group in the 1990s. And then years later, he was hired to write shows for Doctor Who, to actually work on scripts for Doctor Who. And he took his old fanfiction and turned it into an actual episode of Doctor Who. So here is what I'm going to say for advice to any writers who are out there looking at this and everything like that.
You.
Yes, right there. You, out there, you. Dave, I'm talking to you, Dave. If there's anyone watching this at any point named Dave, they are really freaked out right now. Figure out for yourself which of these kinds of writers you are. If you are a writer who can just write an idea down and then go off and do something else, by all means do that. Chase the ideas that will actually get you paid, build up your professional credits, and keep those notes. If you are someone who cannot let go of an idea once you have it, write the idea, whether you have the rights or not. Now, Jenny, again, you mentioned fanfic in the chat. There are fanfic outlets. Don't make them everything you do, but use them to get your ideas out there. Use the internet. Put it up on Patreon for your Patreon
I was like,
followers.
hey, you can't do worse than 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
She built the whole empire out of fanfic.
Yes. 50 Shades of Grey began as Twilight fanfic. So, if you grab onto an idea and you want to see something come from it before you move on to something else, write it. Get it out there. Get it done.
I would also say, as another piece of advice from your internet mom and dad, right? So, whatever you love, write it. Don't... I agree with Glenn. I would not worry about the rights or anything like that. Just write what you like and then kind of learn that as a lesson for later. And who knows, maybe you'll be able to use it later. But part two is, we were talking about how every artist has things that they're not necessarily proud of or they're embarrassed by. And I think both of us talk about a lot like, oh, we're not traditionally pretty, and oh, I don't know if we're talented enough, and I kind of just decided in 2016, there are people who get up every single day who don't worry about how attractive they are or how talented they are, and they say things to the American public, and they go out looking like that. And if they can't be bothered by it, I feel like I can have just as much confidence, and I can go out there and I can just put what I want to see in the world. And even if it's not media I'd want to consume, everybody has different tastes, but it doesn't mean that I can't contribute. And it doesn't mean that I can't wrestle with those icky, awkward feelings on stuff and learn and grow and try to always do better. Yes. So, I hate it when people say it would pain them to go back and revisit their old work. Like, I hope that we can all have healthy mental relationships with our past selves and move forward and be proud of the work that we can do when we can do it, because Lord knows if we waited for this show to be perfect, we would still not be doing it.
And instead, we get to have lots of fun coming here every week and, twice a week and talking to people we really love in the chat and being able to share our ideas with you and share our thoughts and share how our week is going. Share, hey everybody, look, I got a mini disc player.
It's been really meaningful for us and kind of keeping social relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It also has been really meaningful for us since we can't grab a gang and put on a show like we've been very fortunate to do in the past, that we kind of get to just grab a gang and communicate a show, whether it's a show that we've all seen or haven't seen, or things that we want to look out to do next week, or things that we might plan to do years in the future.
Yeah. And it has been a real treasure to be able to do this, and we're still going to do it. We're still here this coming Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, we're going into adaptations. Like, not jukebox musicals, but adaptations of, we have a movie. Here's our pitch of how we'd adapt it as a musical. And do you remember what our next one is?
No.
Let me see.
We got the sheet, though, right here.
I got a note.
We did a plan 2 weeks ago.
As we did a plan.
And I gave it to him because he does all of our posting. So we're trying to get better with posting our ads, since people said they liked our ads. And we're going to get better about posting the events on Facebook. So y'all don't forget to turn in, because we don't really have that, ABC, NBC, CBS money.
So I will tell you what both of our upcoming ones are. All right? And, oh, yes, Jenny says, thanks to this, she gets to see family she never sees.
Yay.
We love you. The next 2 shows.
Yes.
First one is going to be Bree's pitch, again. Bree will be pitching her musical adaptation of Jumpin' Jack Flash.
I am excited about this one.
This is a movie I never actually saw this movie until a couple of years ago. Bree was like, she was talking about, well, it's like that scene in Jumpin' Jack Flash where Whoopi Goldberg listens to the song. And I was like, I've never seen that movie. And she was like, you've never seen Jumpin' Jack Flash? And it was like, okay, I guess I better buy this and watch it now.
So yeah, I was like, I actually had to really debate between which 2 I was going to do, because it was either going to be Jumpin' Jack Flash, which I ended up picking because I think it's a bit of a stronger pitch, or Beverly Hills Cop,
yes,
which I thought would have been really good, mainly because this past year, Back to the Future, the musical, opened in the West End, and it starred Roger Bart, who's very, very famous Broadway guy, was in The Producers, was in Your Good Man, Charlie Brown, was in Young Frankenstein, did a whole lot of stuff. But anyway, he's playing Dr. Emmett Brown, and I was just like, ooh, this is good. And then they got Christopher Lloyd for the commercial, and so I was like, well, I'm guessing that this is, pretty decent. This is pretty good, pretty signed off on the old actors and stuff like that. So I thought, why not revisit some other, movies from my childhood, and what were things I'd like to see? Maybe, Troop Beverly Hills is another one I'd really love to see. But I'm picking Jumpin' Jack Flash because it does have a musical inspiration. I think it is really clever. I think it has really unique characters. It's a strong female lead. It's something that I would be very entertained being in or seeing on stage. Yes. So that just won out just a little bit more.
All right, so on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, you're going to get to see her talking about her pitch for Jumpin' Jack Flash. Jenny is very excited about that. And then on Saturday at 2 p.m., we're going to come back and I will be pitching again. And you will be hearing my pitch for making a Broadway musical out of Bollywood film Om Shanti Om.
Which I'm also very excited about.
Yes.
This has been on my list as well. And I just told Glenn, I was like, you have to pitch it because I can't pitch 3 things.
Yes. So I will be doing Om Shanti Om, which is, if you're not familiar with the movie, it's Shah Rukh Khan, one of the biggest stars in the world, honestly. Not just one of the biggest stars in Bollywood. He's known practically everywhere except the United States. So Shah Rukh Khan, it's a story of Bollywood, film history, romance, reincarnation, mystery, crime. It's got everything. and I want to see it on stage so bad.
Yes, I was like, I mean, we talked about, well, do we want to see this as an adaptation as a movie with just being in English, or would we want to see this? And I think we kind of agreed on stage because it has like qualities of like Phantom of the Opera, which people go nuts for. All these songs are so entertaining and so fun. There's like a modern component. There's like a kind of more classic Bollywood kind of component. And it has one of my favorite lines, even though, again, like, this is a line that has gone around and around and around, and it's kind of a toxic positivity platitude now. But for me, it was really meaningful because I think the first time Glenn showed me this movie, I was going through a rough time. Grad school was not going great. Having a job and money and my mom's health was not going great. So basically the saying is essentially like, if it's not happy, it's not the end, because every ending deserves to be happy, or something like that.
If it's not happy, it's not the end, because every story deserves a happy ending.
Yes. And I loved it. And I like literally, this is how far it's gone since 2000, early 2000s, right? 2006, something like that. It was on a Dove chocolate wrapper that one of my coworkers opened, and she just like rolled her eyes and ate the chocolate and threw it away. And I'm like, okay, in the context of a Dove chocolate wrapper, yes, it is not a good saying. But in the context of the movie, just because he's saying it as this young, poor boy accepting essentially an Oscar. Yeah. And so just saying, you know, it's like, I know we're not famous now, but we're going to be famous. We're going to be happy. I'm going to be able to provide for my family and my mom.
He's playing around. They give him like their wine bottle they're sharing as like, for your achievements in cinema. And he's delivering an acceptance speech to his friends.
Yes, and to like all the kids of the neighborhood, and it's just really, really sweet. And I think that in the context of the story, it's also really, really good because it does deal with stuff that I don't think we deal. It's not very Western concept, although I think in Western films we've seen more and more. But dealing with reincarnation and going through several lives until the ending is happy.
And another element of it that it feels very weird coming from us when we're, you know, the quarantine has gone on so long that we are starting to blend into the walls ourselves. But I think we can all admit Broadway has a slight problem of it's a very white art outlet at the time.
Well,
at the moment.
And one of the things like I've always talked about and why I'm driven towards stories is because I want to learn about people who aren't like me, because I like that empathetic side. I like to be able to live as many lives as I possibly can in this one, because I don't get to be a bunch of other people, but you can do that through storytelling. You can do that through theater. And as much as I do love Shakespeare and I do love kind of like classic 1950s drama, there's a lot of plays that I like that are pretty standard, but I do also like a lot of different cultural experiences as well. And I think that this just kind of gives a broader depth through our experience of humanity. And I think that getting to see, you know, the other portrayed on stage is something that helps us be more loving and more empathetic and more understanding.
And Broadway has been making strides. You know, you have In the Heights, which has a lot more of the Hispanic and Latino communities. You have Hamilton did a lot. That's part of the success of Hamilton, is that it was taking American history and very specifically being like, we're going to tell American history from a perspective, for once, that is not all white. And I haven't seen a whole lot of Indian representation on Broadway at this point.
Yeah, I mean, really surprisingly, you know, one of the things that we've been watching week after week is called Arts on the Hill, which is something offered by the UVA President's Office, and there was a really phenomenal Indian dance troupe that they all had to like dance in their own houses, which is a little sad because one of the most impressive things about going to an Indian dance show is, oh my gosh, there's like 50 people on stage and they're all moving in sync, and it's really amazing. So we were just like, we're going to go see that. The second we can gather in a group, we're going to go see that.
And it's like, look, I recognize there is pretty much no way in which I am not what Broadway has treated as the default for as long as Broadway has existed. No, white, cisgendered, male, straight, Judeo-Christian background, there are very few things about my identity that you could look at and be like, well, we have never seen that on the stage in Broadway. But even so, if I could use a little bit of privilege to expand opportunity for other people, that would be a great thing. Mm-hmm. And I love this story. I would love to work on this story. And I would love for more Americans to see this story because it's a great story.
And there's so much good music in Bollywood films. I mean, like, that's how I kind of got into it. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to convince people to sit down for 3 or 4 hours to watch a Bollywood movie sometimes. But, like, Aja Nachale is another Bollywood film I really, really like. I have several, but I'm not going to expand upon them right now. But there are just tons of shows out there that I think would be a really fabulous translation to the stage, and it's just been really surprising that it's not come more frequently. And it's even more surprising that, like we might think of stuff like Flower Drum Song or Pacific Overtures. Mm-hmm. There's still not even a lot as far as where we've seen more representation for a longer period with things like African American theater or Latin theater or Asian theater. So, I mean, like, even though I think that there has been some footholds here and there, we've never seen South Asian productions. Yeah. We haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of, like, African productions. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just always really surprised when something is brand new in 2020.
Yeah. And so anyway, we're going to start off with Jumpin' Jack Flash. Then Om Shanti Om. Both of the movies that we're adapting are available digitally. Yes. Through regular mainstream outlets. So Apple TV,
whatever it is now.
Amazon, you can find them on Blu-ray. I don't know if they're streaming anywhere. We'll have to look that up and see.
Yeah, I at least know Jumpin' Jack Flash. I think last time we bought it was like $7.
Yeah, it was cheap.
It was not expensive because it's an old movie. I don't think anybody's doing anything with it. But
And Om Shanti Om, usually you can find it fairly cheap digitally because Bollywood is considered like a niche interest in the American entertainment industry. So
yeah, I always say, like, as part of the pandemic, like, I have not really done as much, I think, work, relaxing, or helping as I would normally like to do in this world. But I have spent money. So I have been stimulating the economy with some tax refund and with some stimulus check. So we have been supporting kind of local artists. There's this really, before we go, I was like, I'm going to do a quick ad, even though they're not sponsoring us or anything like that. But there's a company in Decatur, Georgia, that my friend who works at Emory told me about. And this lady is awesome. Oh. We got our hand sanitizer from her when we couldn't find hand sanitizer anywhere else. And because it is like really high grade alcohol, you don't use a lot. And it's really helpful. She's also made disinfectant spray because we can't find disinfectant spray anywhere. So it's been stuff like that where we try to find a local business or we try to find a small business that has been great at shipping things out. Has had really high quality products, and I think we've been really, really lucky in that aspect. There's been a few times we've been disappointed, if I'm honest, but overall, I was like, I think that it just goes to show kind of how much common people are doing to help each other out, and not really like people who should be helping each other out. So if there is something that you can do, like I said, surely Apple is not a small business that needs your $7 for Jumpin' Jack Flash, but also it's not going to hurt anything. Yeah. You're making the economy go by, spreading it around, as Dolly Levi would say. Spreading it around.
And along the lines of that, honestly, Apple's not a struggling business, but you buy it through them. It's not going to hurt anybody because Universal Movies is not a small business either. At no point in the chain of Jumpin' Jack Flash are you going to give money to a small company. You should watch it because it's just a good movie.
Yeah. And you'll know what we're talking about on Wednesday.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. I think that is... That's it? Let's do our last minute reminders here. All right. We've still got the competition going through May 1st.
Turkey time.
All right. So you tweet at us. Breeze's Cheese. Doctor Who. Let us know what you think is going on in the song Turkey Lurkey Time. You also see our coffee link scrolling by down there below.
If you want to buy us some coffee.
Yeah, buy us a coffee or two. that'll be great. Jenny, you have a great weekend too. It's always wonderful seeing you show up in our chat. Bristol, it's nice seeing you guys out there supporting us too. And if you're watching us on Twitch and you haven't signed up for a Twitch account yet, it is free to sign up, and you can pop into our chat and let us know that you're watching as well. And of course, if you're on YouTube watching us, drop into the comments and let us know that you're watching.
I've watched our ads, like, I put in 7 million views by myself. So so there's no shame. They don't say that they're all me.
Yes.
You could just say, I watched it. It'll probably be one of mine, but that's fine. I'll do that for you. My gift to you.
All right. We love you guys.
Mwah,
Thank you
mwah.
so much again. And remember, stay safe, stay home. Take care of yourselves out there, because we're not there to take care of you, okay? All right,
Love you. Bye.